And so, selkies are mythical creatures. Selkies are seals that when they go onto the land and when they take off their skins, they take a human form. And there's many different stories about selkies. There's some from Finland, Northern Europe, from Scotland, from Ireland, and all the different stories have slightly, different elements to them. And each place has a number of different stories about the selkies as well. So just as you ground yourself and connect with the sea, connect with these colder places, should you be in somewhere warm, connect with the seals. I'm just going to play a little bit of music and give me a thumbs up when you can hear it. And so, as you probably know, are you working quite an eclectic way? So blending in somatic work, gestalt, some psychodrama, using a systemic approach, even clean language. And you'll be experiencing these as well as a phenomenological approach, what's happening right here and now throughout the session. And the way it's going to work is I'll be sharing parts of the story and you'll be connecting with different voices of the characters and things, if you choose, in the story. And some of this you'll be working with yourself, and other times we'll work as a whole group, and we may have a breakout or two as well. And so, think about where you live. How far are you from the sea? What's your relationship with the sea or with water? Some people love it, other people are scared of it, and there's many things in between that. And so seals, as you know, they live in salt water. And the background to the selkies, one of the most famous stories is that the title as well is the Scottish word for seal. And there's a lot of symbolism in this particular story. And we'll be stopping as well to think of ways we can use this story that you know.
We're having audio problems. I can't hear you. Very well.
Okay.
Can everyone else hear me or not?
Back
Now
again.
I
Let's
can.
see if I,
You're back again. Thank you, Claire.
is that better? Okay. Just let me know if that goes the same. I didn't get anything on the screen. So do let me know on. And so we'll be talking as well about the ways to use stories with clients. And here we're talking about mythical creatures in legends or fables. However, of course, organizations and communities have many stories of their own. The idea of storytelling to reflect and uncover meaning and learn together in community comes from many native tribes from around the world, where, as we know, they may sit together in the evening with the fire in the elements and share together. And symbolism and stories are in our organizations so often, and yet sometimes we need to slow down to connect with them and understand them. So, using this story particularly is a way that not many people tend to know this story, and so everyone is at the same page, on the same page. Other times, if people know the story, you may want to do a quick recap of the main points in the story to jog people's memory. And in this case, we're doing bit by bit through the story, so people don't even need to know it because it's all being shared. So in this mythology, they can shapeshift into human form. They're found all over Europe, Iceland, Scotland, Ireland, and things change from story to story and place to place. And as the seal's skin is taken off, sometimes the seals in human form feel a yearning to go back to the ocean. And this has been, when I've used this story, symbolism for some people who've changed teams and loved the connection with their own old team, or moved countries or changed jobs. And there's a yearning for the past and maybe not living 100% in the present because of that. And of course, sometimes people have a yearning for the future as well, that when I retire, it'll all be better. Again, not quite living in the moment. Sorry, smiling there, Linda. And then the thing is with this story, if something happens to the skin of the seal, they may have to spend the rest of their life in human form. So you often see seals basking on the rocks and diving together. They live in community, but sometimes if the skins are taken off, the story shares that a human may hide the skin, it may disappear, and the seal may be confused but unaware that they need to find their skin to return to their community. And so, again, this can mean different things to different people, and we work openly with all the concepts just to see what comes up, if anything, from what's being shared from the perspective of you hearing the story and connecting with it. And so the Selkie wife, the seal mermaid, the mermaid's wife, all of these words can get confused between the two, but in all the stories, they mean the same thing. Basically, a female seal takes off the fur, and the man will steal the fur and make him her wife, his wife. The other way around can happen, where the seal skin is stolen by a female. There's one story where it's hidden in a wooden box in the house for many, many years, and they have a child. And that seal even has to go out as a human, in human form, and hunt seals with his wife's father. And so all the emotions connected with that, the confusion when we can't, we notice our emotions, but they seem quite distant. It's hard to recognize why they're there and what they're really about. And then sometimes the lover comes to visit every so often. So from the Orkney Islands, one of the little islands off Scotland, Daniel Allison tells the story of living in harmony, where they visit and then they go back to their community. And so there's parts of living at a distance and elements of isolation, and then the reunion. And of course, all of this relevant to life as well. And then another seal lives with her mother. And every afternoon, she sees someone going to an island and playing with the seals. And we see also the lighthouse and the shining of the light down on the particular image. And so a spotlight almost on what's coming next. And she observes at a distance this person, this young girl, hid behind the rocks one day. And she reaches up and she grabs the skin of the seal and she hides it behind her back. And as the moon dips down into the sea and before the sun rises, the seal can no longer swim. The seal is trapped on the land. And so looking out at the sea, there's a weariness of feeling quite dry compared to the moisture of the sea being around. And then this person pops out to say, you know, are you alone? Where are you from? Come out with me. And takes the seal home in the human form. And they live together for 7 years. And the skin is still hidden away. They become husband and wife, and 9 months later, they have a baby. 7 years go by. They're busy with the child and the chores. And the seal in human form, the eyes are drying up, the lips become sore, and the shining in the eyes begins to fade. And the child can see this, see in the father's eyes as they became duller and sullen, and watches the father near the shore, trying hard to connect with the sea. And the mother and father start arguing at this time. And the father looks older and stressed. And the child wonders, what's this thing that they're arguing about? And each day the mother says, you're here now, this is your place. And yet, further and further, the father drifts away from the wife and the family. And then one day, the child is playing and she finds a seal skin. And she runs to her father. And the father's eyes, in confusion, hold it tight. And yet there's a connection, and the feelings for this skin really cause the father to change in terms of what's going on for them emotionally. And the child notices that the father's eyes are the colour of the sea, and somehow the eyes become calmer and more far away, and yet clearer and shinier. And they walk down to the sea. And we're going to stop there. And so people are quite fond of seals. Some people go to the sea or to zoos to see seals, and to seal centre come up and smile at the windows of the glass in the zoos, and people say they resemble dogs and are friendly, and many different shades of their skin as well are present for us to observe. And now that I've shared that part of the story so far, just be aware, and you may wish to just think, or you may need to jot it down, or you may wish to draw. What are your personal feelings in relation to seals? What comes up for you? And now that you've connected with that, we'll continue. So the Selkie father is getting drier and drier, if we remember, and the eyes were losing their shine. And the child couldn't understand the relationship with this skin and the shift that happened when this skin was found by them. And the father takes the skin home, and there's a raucous argument with the mother and the father. The child's curious, playing nearby and listening to the mother shouting, "Stay here." And there's also an awareness that the child, being 7, recognizes that the community sadly kill seals. They eat seal meat, and seals kill fish, and the whales eat the seals. And there's a connection with this skin and the father. And this seal skin is used by some to protect babies with its softness and warmth, and it's waterproof and thick. It offers immediate safety and warmth. And in shamanism, skins are always mentioned as bringing back pieces that are lost, just like animals can represent ancestors from our past. And I believe the Coyote Native American Indians, when they were moved, some of their animals, their dogs, were not allowed with them. And it was as if losing their ancestry, that they weren't allowed on some boats to follow. So here is many different connections with nature, with animals. And we all have our different feelings around that, and different cultures have different experiences. And so some believe in the Selkie stories that the skin is where the soul of the seal lives. And as we all know, our skin is our biggest organ. And sometimes we sort of forget that. And, if our skin's dry or if our skin has a rash, it's telling us something, maybe related to stress or something else. And also, some of the Selkie tales talk of when we are not in our own skin, we are separated from our personal purpose and values. And there's also some of the stories that are related to endings. So the mother and father continue to argue, and the realization comes to the father in terms of what this skin is all about, his so-called past life in the sea, and the realization that if he goes to where he's being pulled back into the sea, something will happen. He will only see his child for one more day, because if a Selkie in human form returns to the sea, they can never return again. And that's one particular ending to the story. Another ending related to Siberian elders. And this brings out the words, if you don't know the trees, you can get lost in the forest. And if you don't know the stories, you can get lost in life. And so what we can also do in supervision is ask people to connect with different parts of the stories, different characters in the story, but also to create their own ending to the story as well, with a particular purpose in mind. And sadly, there's seal hunters that kidnap the seals. And so all of this may resonate with people in different ways, or touch people in certain ways. And where you live in the world may affect you in terms of the way people relate to eating fish, for example, or seals. And of course, here we're not doing therapy. I'm telling the story to enable you to connect with the experience of what comes up during that story, to enable you to reflect. And so I invite you now to grab a piece of paper. If you've got felt tips or pens or just a pencil, you can even draw it on your computer screen if you wish, whatever way you wish to work. And so with your feet firmly on the ground, anything can happen in the world of stories. Connect with the father, the Selkie, and draw what happens next. And I'll give you about 5 minutes to draw what happens next and to see what that might represent for you. Hi, Katie. So we're doing a little bit of drawing, Katie. In a nutshell, so far I've shared part of a story about mythical creatures that, if their seal skin is removed, they take human form. And this particular seal had his skin stolen by a lady that then became his wife. They now have a 7-year-old daughter, and the skin was found by the child. And he's at a point where he doesn't know if he should return to his community under the sea, the seals, or stay with his wife and child. And you're invited to draw. That was quick, that little snippet. You're invited to draw what you think he might do, bearing in mind that if his skin is put back on, he will then never be able to join his wife and child in human form in the future.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I apologize for popping in late. I had a client
Do not
meeting.
worry. Do not worry. And so Rehan has just joined as well. And to give you a break from my voice, who would like to, in a nutshell, share the story with Rehan so she can work on the little drawing activity? Anyone like to share? So Rehan, there's something in Gestalt, sharing what's been said more than once and seeing how it shifts over time. So a selkie is a seal who lives in the sea. However, if they come on the land and their skins are removed, they take human form. And this particular one had the skin stolen by a lady who becomes his wife. They now have a child who's 7 years old, and the child found the skin. Argument between the husband and wife, because if he returns to the sea and puts back on his skin, he can't return to them on the land. And so your task is to, you've got about 3-4 minutes left to draw what you think he might do next.
Thank you very much.
So 1 more minute left. Close the slides for a few minutes. And so if you want to stay with your own picture, your own ending to the story and your own thoughts, that's absolutely fine. And if you wish to share briefly, you can always, if you've not got the blurred background or hold it in front of your face, you can always share it with us here, or you may just wish to share what happened at the end of your story, and maybe the why as well. Anyone like to share? On.
So this was a really interesting conundrum, and I'm no good at drawing. But for me, he's clearly in love. You know, he's got this love for his family, his daughter. He's got love for the sea, and for me, it's what's most important to him. You know, and to me, it's still an outcome that I'm not sure which way he'll go, because in a way, it doesn't matter that to me, it doesn't matter that his skin was taken. He's now got this environment whereby you know, he's got this family that he loves. He's got this daughter that he loves. And even though he may be looking at the sea, that's in the past. So right now, what fulfills him the most? And for me, it's I'm looking forward to the end of the story, because I don't know what I would choose. And it's so difficult. Do I go with who I was in the past and reestablish myself there, or do I maintain these connections with these people who clearly mean something to me and are very important, and continue that life and maybe accept rather than think about what he lost. Maybe he can think about what he's gained and what he has. So to me, it's really it's a difficult conundrum, because it depends on does he does he want to punish her for stealing his skin and hiding it? You know, is that what it's about, or is it truly about love and and then living with purpose to raise his child and maintain his relationship with his wife? You know, so I found it like I've got stick drawings of daughter and mom. I've got a heart, then I've got an ocean and a question mark that I like to
Yeah.
come up with. But that is to me what do you want to? Yeah, it's so confusing, and I'm struck by how it resonates with me, because it's like, well, do I want to be the guy that happens? Or do I want to create a new future that I don't know what is? Because there's a great deal of uncertainty, right? So yeah, that's what came up for me.
Thank you, Anne. And Adriana, just before we go to you for sharing, what we can do now is, in 1 word or 2 words max, share a theme that you noticed that was in Arne's take when he shared. So, for example, I recognized you were talking about love. Anyone else, any themes you noticed?
The alternative path of punishment and retribution.
Mhm.
And maybe loyalty along with love to the new family.
Logic went out the window.
Say that again, Khalid?
Logic went out the window.
And for me, there's also a push and pull. Jawaha.
Yeah, I can see, I hear through what I heard from Erin, I think it's the the change management mechanism. As Erin mentioned, why should I go back to the sea? Like cope with what's in the present to the future. Bridget.
Q. And of course, with all of, and we've got punishment, yeah, logic. And of course, we can go, we can choose, we won't, but we can choose to go back to on if we're doing this in a group context. What comes up for you now that that's been shared? So a story can be used, a shorter story possibly, used as a stimulus for group supervision. And it may be people that are working in the same organization. So it may be, for example, internal coaches, and you're supervising them who work in the same environment. Thanks. Adriana.
Yeah, I raised my hand because I heard what Aaron shared, and my word was connection. And I believe my drawings, and it's not drawing, it's something, really relates to his, because in my ending, he's teaching his daughter to dive and connecting her to his ancestors and his past, because if he would choose to go back, it would mean leaving the daughter. And I believe I would maybe draw something different if I was not a parent. So who I am really impacts how I was drawing this and how I felt this story.
Thank you. And so from that sharing, what themes were present? Anyone like to identify any? Jawaha.
Consideration and being logic. She said, and that's really touched me. If she's not a parent, she will choose another option. So I'm reflecting on that right now.
It's interesting. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and I'm thinking, you know, sharing of ancestral stories.
Well, the interesting thing what Adriana said was, you know, would I think differently if I was a parent? And I think that was something that I really, you know, hadn't thought how that was influencing me, because from my perspective as a parent, I would do whatever I could to be with my child. You know, that's my raison d'etre. I don't want to leave them, and I'm willing to make sacrifices to be with them, to experience them, watch them grow, love them. And so what Adriana said is very, very, you know, lens, you know, it uncovers another deeper layer to what I was thinking.
And the word sacrifice has just struck me in the chat. When supervising coaches working, for example, in the NHS, National Health Service in the UK during COVID, supervising head teachers during COVID, and that sometimes things have to be closed to be able to move on. Thank you. Linda.
Well, I'm not a great drawer, and so I'd written many words, and what I actually came up with was, hang on, let's see all my other
That
stuff.
seal at a glance looked really cute.
It's not bad. Not bad. Okay, so let me just see. So that's what I sort of came up with here is a high level piece around wither or restore the dilemma, and then there's an opportunity. And I'm listening to everybody here, and it's connecting to what I was thinking as well around that. I'm shifting into telling my story, so maybe I'll just hold that until you're ready to move on there, Claire.
We're ready.
We're ready? Okay. So the story evoked for me this powerful sense of community and belonging. And as a human with the family, his daughter, even though there may have been differences between him and his wife, it was still that sense of belonging, no matter what it was. And the story suggested, well, clearly said actually, that he's going to wither and die as a human. How long seems to be fairly quick. And if he goes back to being a SEAL, it's an unknown about his life expectancy as well. So there are two unknowns here for me. That popped up. Just because it might feel good, it may not actually turn out the way I think it is going to turn out. And so it's a real so what emerged more was about that sense of community and belonging and purpose. And one of the things that when we were first connecting to SEALs was that where I live, the SEALs are similar to what the picture you showed, and you know, I'm near a beach, and they settle there sometimes, and they have this deep, soulful bark. And it's the language that they speak, and it's surprising when you hear it. It's loud, deep, and there's a connection that is more than just, you know, I want that fish, that piece of fish floating around there. So there was that piece as well. That how could he capture that if he stayed as a human? But I think it's there. Anyway, I'm talking around in circles here, but that's where I got, and I didn't finish the story, the next step. I really appreciated what Adriana said about ancestry, and as a parent, this is what I would do, teach my child to swim. And I was so caught up in the community and the belonging and purpose piece, I missed that. Yeah, so I might have got stuck.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. And what themes have we heard there? Ancestors. You're making me think about strategy in one bank I was working with, where they were deciding whether to move their head office or not to a different country. Different opinions, limitations. Thank you, Linda. Wehan, you wanted to share your screen.
Sorry, by mistake. Thank you.
Did you say you wanted to share your picture?
No.
Oh, is it someone else?
By mistake, yeah, I wanted to share the screen by mistake. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So anyone else before we move on? Khalid.
Listening to all the explanations I heard, my impression was I heard a different story. I was in a completely different movie, not even a different movie. I was in a complete different cinema. The only thing what came up for me is all this is the result of forbidden fruit. My picture shows very clearly a seal swimming away from two people standing at the beach in front of a house. There was no hesitation. There was no thinking twice about it. It's all result of forbidden fruit, unethical. I'm out of here.
Thank you for sharing such a different perspective. And I'm thinking temptation. Any other themes that have come up as you're listening to Khalid?
Honestly, I thought of building a bridge because that child is innocent. So I agree with Khalid, and I agree with everybody else. So love and belonging, the father and daughter bond is very strong. So maybe building us a bridge, having his skins back, go to the water, but comes back for the daughter from time to time. I thought of contracting, honestly. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you. Juwaha.
Yeah, actually, I'm the one who's requesting to have the.
Ah,
It's okay, Dr. Clare. Considering the time, if you wish, I'm ready. If you're not, it's okay. So I see what Khalid meant. That's why I draw him going back to the sea. Are you able to see my picture?
it's there, yes.
Yes. So he's wearing his skin, the original one. Because the poor child, he saw him with the dryness. And now I recall because I'm living in Riyadh, the capital, and it's in the middle of the Arabian Peninsula, which is a desert by its nature. So when I see the sea sails in Jeddah, for example, and I compare it now when I'm traveling to the US, for example, or Australia, our sails here in Jeddah, they look drier and thinner. While in Australia, for example, or US, they are looking fresher, and the skin type is different. I can share the picture if you wish. So yes, he's ready to leave to the sea. He's talking to his child, explaining that the child will be aware. At 7 years old, I'm considering that they will be aware because they see this argument with the mother. They see the symptoms of dryness and sadness. So the father is going, and that's why I put the red line to the child, because he's explaining to his child, and the green line to show the consideration and also the agreement, as Rehan mentioned. And also here's the agreement. There's an agreement. The child will be in the father thought, but if we imagine the situation, what if the father continue to in this unhealthy situation? So maybe because I'm not a parent, and that's recalling also what Adriana has mentioned, and also considering what Khalid said, it wasn't a healthy situation from the beginning. But that's my thought.
Thank you. And what themes have been noticed there from Juwaha?
Something that came up for me from Jawahar and everybody else, dilemma of the situation. So somebody is torn between this and that. Thank you.
And what came up for me with your share was context and how things look different depending upon where you're viewing them from. What the seals that you see are different than the seals that Linda's describing.
Yeah. I'm thinking there's an element of wanting harmony. So let's move on. So the first time I did this, mine was I was led in a way by this particular image, and I made up that what happens is the father gives the child some of the skin, and the child goes with him into his environment, into his world. I don't know what happened to the wife though, because that felt all nice, and then I sort of closed the wife out somewhere. So in terms of using a story, whatever it may be, looking at themes, speaking from character, which is another thing that's a Gestalt approach. Working together also, of course, you can use it in coaching, working out problems, coming up with solutions together. What comes up in terms of process and how to work with these things?
I'm not sure yet what is the purpose of the whole thing. I mean, okay, sharing, therapy and all that stuff, but how to connect that one to supervision, that is for me still a bit foggy.
So I get you completely. And we've used this as a chosen story by me to work with everyone, to reflect more on the story than a common theme. Whereas if it was group supervision for people in the same organization, quite often they've shared topics that are relevant to them all. And one of them may just in 2 minutes in the supervision, actually recall, something that's happened to them, or recall something from a story or a character from a film. So it's actually working with I2 of the seven-eyed model. And it's then a choice point whether to go deeper into that story or to just stay with it high level. And that person can share what came up for them from the story. There is also a use, for example, again, it was with a group of coaches from the National Health Service during COVID. And a story was chosen by one of them because they wished to connect with ways to deal with grief. And so it fairy tale, and yet it was I forgot the name of it, and then the prince, she dies, and then the prince come and kisses her and she wakes up. The Princess and the Frog. And they were trying to, in the restorative element of supervision, come to terms with what's going on for them, but also some of them were sharing that they were becoming disassociated, quite distant from the reality of what's happening, because they were seeing such difficult cases in their work and hearing from the medical professionals such difficult cases so often, that the way that was being absorbed by the medical professionals needed processing for the coaches themselves so they could wash it off. And so the Princess and the Frog story just came up from one of them. And I said, hey, we can explore this further if you want. And then there was quite a lot of symbolism in the different parts of the story. The other thing is, Khaled, some people may love this stuff, some people may hate it. Some people may be in a group where some love it, some hate it. Some people may say, forget all this, let's get our Lego out. Or let's just look at a model together. So it's just one other way where we can connect with what's going on for us. If there's a common theme, then that can support the analysis of the story. Linda.
I was just thinking about what you said, Khaled, and that looking at I7, zooming out and looking at the picture of, and the symbolism of everything is who's not in the picture? Who haven't we talked about in this organization, in this team, in the relationship, the wife, and everything else, and then who is the decision maker here? Who holds the control, and who's the risk taker? What other voices do people have in this organization and the team? So I was thinking back, pulling back and looking at the system, because I think it's a great question that you asked in terms of how could we really transfer this to the work we do with organization, or the work we do as supervisors. Yeah. Just to start thoughts.
I4 as well, what's going on for the coach. So why is it on that day at that time we share that ending to the story? And is there any parallel processes between the themes that we have actually blended into our ending that's relevant for us in our work? And with all of these, it's play about, see what suits you, see what suits your clients as well. Adriana.
Yeah, not sure if Rihan wants to go first because she raised hand some time ago. or not. But okay, I would have to leave you all, but before I leave, I would like throw some thought. What I was talking, and it's maybe connected to what Khaled like asked us how we can connect this story before you asked us to draw the ending, like word corporations and topics of my clients were in my head. So potentially connected to this story, and what I would bring to supervision for supervision would be the topic how people in corporations are disconnected from their values and beliefs. And this going back to the sea, and this who is the woman here and daughter here in this story for some high managers, executives, and so on.
And Adriana, if you've got 1 second, the end of this particular story is, oh, I could leave you in suspense forever. The end of this particular story is that he has the most fabulous day ever with his wife and child, and they leave, and he leaves back to the sea. That was the ending that was written. Thank you.
Thank you. I will watch the recording. Can't wait. So thank you very much all. It was nice seeing you.
Pleasure. And so the wording at the end is, and I'll read it. And the father looked at the child, but something bigger calling his ancestral seal blood heart, beating seals in the sea, and the seal belongs to the sea. So that's how it ends. And other things you can do in supervision on supervision. So this is useful. Team coaches work with a lot more complexity, and team coach supervisors having supervision on supervision together can bring out even more layers and dimensions, if we want to use that word. And so it can also be short story, a poem, even pictures. And which one are you drawn to right now? So from the story, it can be, which scene are you drawn to right now in this moment? And what might that be about? And what ways would working with this particular scene or image or part of the poem or story support you in uncovering ways of working with your coaches in their complexity and, of course, the wider system? So where are we now? Any thoughts?
I'm really, hearing the ending, I was struck by how, I didn't look at all of the possible choices. I didn't think that there would be a compromise. To me, it's a compromise, saying, hey, I spend 1 day with you, and then, then I'm going back. And I think that for me is really eye-opening, in that, I was letting my own, trying to make sense of it, and thinking, well, maybe am I asking the right questions? That's what came up for me. Am I asking the right questions? Because I also concluded that, you needed a presentation. So I was going to do it like, you're going to do one or the other, and it's like, well, what's the whole range, right? What's out there for us? And I think that's really interesting for me, is that it's like, okay, you may think you can see the choices, but there's many more, and asking the right questions to continue opening that up. And then also helping the coaches I work with and talk to, how are you opening up the questioning so that you get beyond what you think? Because oftentimes, the business coaches I work with, they think they've got a solution. Well, is that really necessary? And are you then influencing the conversation to achieve an outcome that you think is appropriate, rather than achieving an outcome which is appropriate for the team that you're coaching. So, brilliant. I really like this. This is eye-opening for me. Like, gotta remember, there's more than one way to peel an apple.
I'm thinking there are, I'm not picking on you in any way, Anne, but there's also a thing there in terms of psychodynamics and possibly sometimes, well, following rules or not following rules and anything in between. So was it two options, or some people always go to the bit in the middle?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Linda. Oh,
Rehan has her hand up there.
Yeah, it's okay, Linda, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to, I love the story. I got so caught up in the creativity of the story, I forgot, as I said earlier, about how specifically am I going to use this. And I just wanted to mention that probably about 20 years ago, there was a lot of use of poetry and Shakespeare and many Western literature-based poems, etc., used in leadership development. Anyway, I don't know if you've heard of this poet. He's Irish, David White, and I follow him off and on, but he wrote this book many years ago, and it was about Beowulf, using Beowulf. Has anybody heard of Beowulf? Okay. Well, I actually went to an exhibit in the British Museum where I saw one of the original copies. There was an exhibition. It's my favorite poem. Anyway, as a kid. So here's the book, and it's The Heart Aroused, David White, and it's Poetry and the Preservation of the Soul in Corporate America. It was quite groundbreaking at the time, and so it really connects to what I'm experiencing here, and I thought I would share that with you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And you've made me think as well, in your authority as a supervisor, when people choose, when they're contracting with their clients, this is the way that I supervise. This is the experience you'll get from me. So we had someone the other day on the community cafe, and he blends a lot of spiritual work into his supervision, and maybe more of that than the other legs of the stool of supervision. And so it's always a choice point as well. What do you want to be known as a supervisor by your clients? For me, and Anne, you're in the middle of the screen there. For me, it's team coaching supervision is my favorite bit. And that is the bit that if anyone thinks Claire, if I'm remembered by that, I'd be happy. So connecting with your authority and expertise. Rehan.
I loved what you mentioned about to be known for something. Actually, I was in that group supervision a few months ago, and I was using the model, the triangle model. And so some people said, we prefer the freestyle because we had the first session using the freestyle. So I switched right away to the freestyle because this is what they wanted. So I think sometimes it's not about what we want. Also, it's about the supervisee, what they want, what makes them feel comfortable in the session. For me, I like fairy tale. I like to connect. I like to think outside the box. Some people may not like it. They feel like, why should I connect something with something else? So maybe we use it with the right people or people who are interested. But how do we know? My question to you, how do we know if we are meeting people for the first time? Like in my supervision session, all of them were different people I never met in my life. So it was hard to decide. It's not like people that you have had coaching sessions and supervision sessions before. How can we decide in a very short time what these people like or prefer?
So my advice there would be, is it about them, or, and there's no right or wrong, or is it about you sharing clearly in advance the way you supervise and then they choose you for group supervision?
It was general. I didn't say what I'm gonna do. So you have a point. Maybe next time I have to be clear. I'm gonna supervise you using this, and see who comes, because maybe I will attract the right people. Yes, you are right. Thank you very much.
And as you know, people who coach or supervise with Lego, people know that before they join their sessions.
True.
And
Thank you.
sometimes even in, you know, the information sheet in advance can help them make that decision as well.
Thank you.
The other thing is the group dynamic bit. We can't please everyone all of the time, and yet we value everyone's perspective. Katie.
I've really enjoyed this. Thank you. And even though I came in late and filled in a lot of my own details in the story, and then through this conversation have heard what the original included, the perspective of transformation is what came up for me, and not necessarily knowing the perspective of the seals as a whole. Maybe they're longing to get on land. You know, it's you know, wondering what do they really want, as well as a awareness of choices and what are choices. Just keeping that in mind, you know, in supervision and in going through working with clients and ourselves, to always notice that there are options and it's not black or white, to explore the full range of what is happening. And Linda, thank you for sharing the is it David White and his writing around Beowulf. That reminds me of the relatively recently departed David Peterson, who used a lot of poetry in his coach training. He's was over here in the United States. He passed away, you know, maybe about 18 months ago. But I did some training with him, that he would always lead and begin with poetry verses, and not necessarily tie them to the work, but just set them out and launch them and let people make what they will of them. So that came to mind, Rehan, with you were talking about people's styles and how do you know what they are. He would just like, here it is. If you want to work it into what you're doing, great. If not, it's you know, it's there.
I was training some teens in coaching competencies, and at the end used the book Dr. Seuss, Oh, the Places You Go, and you'll go hi, 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 and touch the sky. And so it's, yeah, sometimes different stimulus can be really useful. Anyone else? Jawaha.
It's beautiful to see all these different perspectives, and each perspective tells a lot about the person, or what's the feeling or the situation the person is going through. Like for Adriana, being a mother, for me, like, you know, being realistic, why should I stay here when I'm dry or experiencing this dryness? I believe in creativity and art in everything, even in telling, like, you know, or telling a story, educating, training, or even coaching and in supervision. So today I experienced that beautifully. I see it, and I can reflect on a team coaching and how can that beautifully, like, you know, in facilitation or team building, can support us a lot as a team coach in our practice. I would like to thank Linda for sharing Beowulf's story. I used it. That was an old poem that I studied during my English literature. I used it with our Arabic speaker translated. I can say that, yeah, the concept wasn't clear enough to them, but they reflect back using some also classical Arabic poetry that's before Islam. So they use the methodology perfectly. now I'm thinking a lot about using like stories and our own methodology and Fox, like, you know, stories to experiment in that. Okay, I think I believe Lego now. I will leave it in peace for a while in my cafe, SUPERvision cafe, and I will experiment with stories and like methodology, like, you know, myths.
Maybe
Good.
maybe blending the two as well.
Maybe, why
Lego
not?
and stories. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. And Linda, there was one thing as well when you were talking that just made me think about, you know, sometimes, and I'm sure we've all done it, is the grass greener on the other side? Yeah. Mm. So there's another quick activity here. If you'd like to partake, so choose one character or one thing in the story, and it has a voice. And so draw that one character or one thing, and we may not have mentioned it explicitly. It may be the water in the sea, it may be the stone that the seal skin was hidden behind, whatever. And when you've drawn it, draw a speech bubble. If you want to do this for self, what is that saying to you in terms of you as a supervisor? And maybe it can be your growth edge, or use a different theme. So draw that thing or that character, and you might want to write a title for that little piece of the storyboard. You can also go deeper somatic if you wish into what are you experiencing as you're connecting with that. There was someone once who was very well versed in ancestral trauma, and they came up with a fascinating speech bubble. And your time is up. Nobody gets it wrong in this type of situation with artwork. We're all amazing artists. If anyone would like to share,
Oh, I'm not.
if anyone would like to share and which character or thing and what is in the speech bubble, now is your time.
I'll share.
On.
And this time I'll play along. I don't know if you can. Oh, shoot. No.
Put it right in front of your face and we can see it, usually. Little bit forward towards the screen.
Any luck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ish. We got the
No, ish.
outline.
Well, it's the title is Transformation Journey. I have a heart, and it's of the Father. And which path should I follow? That's the bubble. You know, that's the character that speaks to me, is that, you know, the Father's heart, and the, you know, the conundrum, the dilemma. What should I do? So.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll go. I drew the shoreline, and the headline was Shoreline Bridges. And the speech bubble said, I bridge the space between worlds. And there's not a lot to see in my drawing, but this is the shoreline, and that's a dock or some structure that connects from the water to the land.
I bridge the place between worlds. Anyone else? Khaled?
I went slightly different. I just took my first picture and added myself with a bubble of question marks. Just wondered what am I not seeing?
Mm.
I love that adding to.
Mhm.
It's that some of you know the language of that liminal space between as is and is that fine as is, or is there a to be and we need to play in that space of moving towards? Thank you. Linda.
Well, this is what I drew and wrote. It's the slippery rock that's wet. It's attached to something, so it's not an iceberg effect. And then the welcoming sea surrounding it. And I thought it was, and I've watched seals play for a while, bask, and then slither into the water very easily. So when I think about making decisions or coming to a quick solution and then changing their mind to get back up onto the rock, it's very difficult and they struggle. So I'm not sure what the message that is to me, but it's a metaphor perhaps. I'm not quite sure, but giving time to respond, maybe in supervision. Staying a bit longer.
Letting them do the work as well comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
Instead of helping and fixing and wanting to push them up. They won't get stronger otherwise. Anyone else? Joanna.
Yeah, I'll share my drawings. Yes. Are you able to see it? Sorry.
Now we can.
Yes, it's the same picture, but I draw the group or the tribe or the family of that sail that went kidnapped, let's say, or been dragged to the land with a message, we missed you. To me, I thought about the whole 7I system, the systemic approach, the environment, and we heard from, okay, the child, the sea itself and the feeling, but we never heard about how's the family or the tribe of that cell been feeling all this time. Actually, did they visit him at night, knowing his place?
Yeah.
And now hearing all this underneath, I'm sure that they just happy to receive him. And they would like to send him a message like, we're waiting for you, come down to us.
Thank you. And so, anyone else? In terms of using this style, which is a little bit of the story, then playing with it, and then a little bit more of the story, which means people can turn up and they don't need to know the story at all. How did that work for you?
I really liked it because you would I would come to I would interpret the story, try to figure it out, make sense of it, and then we would move on, and it would add more complexity, more layers, more deeper interpretation, and then hearing all of your lovely interpretations, and it was to me very mind expanding because I was here, but then I would hear what Katie said, what Linda said. I loved Khalid's question. What's the point? All of that stuff. It just continued to get me to think and in a way drop all of the preconceived notions that I had and say, okay, just experience this. So I really enjoyed it. I really liked that because if you'd given me the story right, right to the very end, I wonder what kind of pictures I would have drawn. They would have been very much different. So in a way, it also then challenges you to realize that I don't know everything. I don't understand everything, and reminds me of a Zen garden in a way where if you look at it from different perspectives, things look, you won't see the whole garden unless you're at 30,000 feet and you've got a spy camera. So to me that's what it was, and then and the so I really like that. I think it was a great approach because it prevented me from concluding conclusively that this is the right way. No, everybody's input is like, oh my gosh, never thought of that, never thought of that. Oh wait, oh that enriches this. So I really like that. It was to me it was a nice way of, or not nice, but I don't know what to say. It was a great way of causing me to think and challenge myself continually. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. And of course, in all of this, you can blend even, deeper theory. We've got, in a way, the mother and transactional analysis, where she is a parent, but we're talking transactional analysis parent of the more domineering in control type. We didn't really see a lot of subservience because in the story he's unaware initially that the sealskin's been stolen or hidden away. Anything else in terms of the approach used?
Can you say that again? I didn't hear you. Broke up for me.
Anything else in terms of the approach? So you've got a tick already because you said yours.
You're on mute, Katie.
Thank you. The way that story or fables can bring out more complexities and metaphors than just one symbol or one object is fascinating to watch everyone's interpretation. And I can see how this would work really well with the group or team supervision, as well as individual, but especially with multiple perspectives, and then relating it back to how does that impact, relate to us, as for the group being worked with.
Yeah, and there's something also in a lesser known story, if it's a story that everyone doesn't know, there's no insecurity about, they may know more than me.
Yeah, or attaching meaning to this one's good and that one's bad, like kind of an ambiguity in the story.
Or projecting how we felt about a story from the past onto how we might experience it right now.
Yeah, all that.
And so this is, yes, Linda.
Sorry, Claire, I just wanted to add that with something like this, it's really important, at least for me, to have time, allow time in the group and a group supervision or even individual for people to process and reflect and then be able to respond. So I really appreciated the time that you gave us to do that, and that everybody's voices are heard. And because everybody had such enriching and enriched perspectives that they brought. Really learned a lot. Thank you.
And if it was a bigger group, I would have probably have chosen to put people in breakouts to share, and then back to the big group, what needs sharing now to the bigger group. Should there be things with psychological safety people want to share a little bit more over there where it's slightly quieter, just like we do in the room in coaching or training as well. So this is us complete. This is the material that I've prepared for this session. any last words as we close?
Thank you for this session, and thank you for everyone who participated with their thoughts, their insights. I really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Clare and everyone.
Yeah, I'd like to express gratitude for continuing to expand our horizons and show what other tools are out there and approaches are possible. Always a joy and a huge aha.
And thank you, Claire. And the recording will be up on the YouTube channel. Is that right? That where we'll
So
find it? I'd love to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, that is the final question. If everyone's happy, then I'm happy to put it on YouTube for everyone to hear. Any objections? And I'll check in with Adriana. I usually record and then do the check to make sure that, you know, people are happy at the end. If she's happy, then it will go there.
Awesome.
Khalid, was there anything you wanted to say?
I'm still struggling with how that is connected to supervision. I'm sort of expanding my horizon, and I'm tiptoeing forward. It is a journey. You will see me again on it.
We know we will. And
Yep.
I always love your honesty. It's needed. So I'm going to enjoy my evening and go for a swim. If it's the start of your day, have a fabulous day and see you all soon.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.